Hello, hello, hello. My name is Matthew Coast. Is that weird? My name is Matthew Coast, and welcome to this pressing question that we have today, which is if um, if will a man use a woman if he's allowed to? And so this is a question that came to me from our community not too long ago, where a woman actually mentioned that she thinks that a if you let a man, that he will use you, right? And I think what she was implying was that he will use you for sex. Now, the question is this true? Is it true? And I think it depends, right? It depends on the man. Anytime I hear kind of this thing where men or women say most men or all men, or men say all women, or most women, it's a little cringy for me, to be honest, right? Because the question is, how often does it happen? And I think that the answer is a little bit complicated, and so we need to talk about a few different things in regards to why somebody will use another person. That way you can figure out if a man is trying to use you or not. And so a lot of people think that men are just going to use them in some kind of malicious or have some kind of negative intent with this kind of using a person type of thing. But I think what really happens with both men and women is that we get into these different situations where we experience good emotions, right? We feel really good. We have something that's going on that feels good to us. And so what we do is we want to continue experiencing that. But what ends up, because men and women are obviously different in some ways, we're also the same in many ways. And we're actually going to be talking about a bunch of different ways that men and women use each other today, so that we can kind of get more of a sense of what's going on here. Our channel and what we talk about on here is this idea of partnership, right? Being on the same side, having compassion for each other, making sure that when you're in a relationship, that it's valuable and beneficial to both of you. So real quick, I just want to say hello to everyone. If you're here and watching right now, hello, say hello in the chat. Rose says hello. Amy says hello. Donna says hello. So hey, say hello if you're in the chat here with me, and tell me what you think. If will a man use a woman? Will most men use women if they're allowed to? What do you think? So Levine says hello. Princess Mamazilla Dragon Rider says it's a great name. Shane, hey. Liz, hey. Miriam, hey. Sunny Days, hey. Suna, Susie, Evan, Kim, Colleen, Lisa. Wow, we have a lot of people saying hello right now. So the question is, will most men take advantage of women if they're allowed to? And so, and like I said, it depends. It depends on the situation. I think that most people will actually take advantage of other people, not in like a way where they want to hurt the other person, but they do it because they're consumed with themselves, right? We're all consumed with ourselves. The reason this question came up was actually because we're consumed with ourselves, and we look at things and we think, oh, men are, a lot of the women in our community were like, oh, men are trying to use women, right? And the reality is that we're both trying to use each other. And there's a better way, right? There's a better way where we're experiencing the great things that we're experiencing. We're getting our needs met. We're having joy and fun and pleasure and we're making sure that we're in good situations. And that's kind of what we really want to focus on in this community and with what we do here. None of the stuff that we do is about revenge or hurting anybody. And so if you're doing that, you should probably leave and, I don't know, go cry in a corner or something. That was a joke. You don't have to cry in a corner. Although sometimes it can be very powerful to go cry in a corner. So I'm not talking bad about crying in corners. Okay, so what do we have here? The answers are yes, because it is a mutual request via love language understood, mutual request. They will majority of the time, especially if his character is not stronger than his integrity. It's a good one, Liz. What do we have here? He can be kissing you like he means it while using you. Is that a question or a statement? Not in a mentally healthy way. Yes and no, depending on, I think there's another thing too that we need to consider here, right? And it's what is using somebody. So I think what we would define as using somebody here would be, and I think the comment originally in our community was about sex, right? She was like, oh, okay, a man's going to use a woman for sex. And the reason why this is a big thing for women is because women, generally speaking, tend to do what I call catch feelings, right? They tend to fall in love. They tend to have that dopamine come out, the oxytocin come out, and they start feeling these so good feelings of love for this man that they're dating. And so they're like, why isn't he feeling the same way? And there's actually women who are in our community who have been seeing men in non-committed relationships for up to 17 years. Can you imagine this? 17 years in a relationship? That's not a commitment. There's no commitment. The guy doesn't even call her his girlfriend. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy, but it happens. It happens all the time. I would say that that's a situation where the guy knows, right? A guy knows that she wants something more, but he's not letting her go, and he's continuing to have this sexual relationship with her where he's getting all of his needs met, but she is not. I would say that knowledge and knowing it is what constitutes using somebody. So I think that if you're in a situation where you're both kind of sleeping with each other and it's fun, that's fine as long as you know that it's just that, right? I think once as a woman, usually the longest period of time for most women, from what studies I've read, is that it takes somewhere between like 3 weeks and 3 months in order for her to start feeling those deep connected feelings with a man from having sex with him, even with it not being a committed relationship. And usually after that period of time, the woman will definitively start feeling more and more connected with a man. And so if I were you, I was watching something earlier today. I've been kind of obsessed with watching Steve Harvey videos lately. It's kind of embarrassing, but he's got some really interesting things that he says. Some of the things that I think that he says is just totally off, and some of the things that he says I think is really on. And one of the things that he said in one of the episodes I watched today was about how if you're in a relationship for 3 months, for more than 3 months, you need to know, where this relationship is going, right? If you're a man, as a man being in a relationship or having some kind of connection with a woman like that, he knows where things are going. In his mind, he has an idea of where things are going. And the question is, do you fit into that picture of where he thinks he's going? And so before the 3 month mark, And I kind of see what he's saying here, where he's like, before the 3-month mark, it's like, well, you're kind of getting to know each other. You're still trying to figure each other out. Is this the person that I really want to have a committed relationship with and, get married to and all that kind of stuff. I think you should be figuring this out beforehand. I don't think there's anything wrong with having a conversation about this. If a man freaks out in a conversation like this, you already know what your answer is. Yeah, so that's true too. So Karen says a high value woman knows when to say no. That's true. And it will make a man feel like he recognizes your value if you can say no and if you can have boundaries. One of the things I talk about in my frame program, my Love Frames Toolkit program, is that whoever has the strongest frame, like the strongest beliefs about what's going on, will win. So if you are like, hey, no, these are my boundaries, and you're really strong about them, you'll win that. If you have beliefs about, this is my value and these are the things that I accept and don't accept, whoever's strongest in that kind of belief system will end up winning and will give that belief system to the other person in regards to the relationship. Was that too complicated? I don't know if that was too complicated for everybody. Anyway, I just wanted to go over a few different ways that men and women kind of use each other. That way you can make sure that you're not getting into a situation where you end up getting used. So Karen said, don't agree to a friend with benefit arrangement. Yeah, you know what? I agree. If you want something real, actually, as a woman, I don't think you should ever really get into a friend with benefits type situation ever. Just because of this, a lot of women end up getting into situations like that because they're like, oh, well, this guy seems really hot or whatever, and they end up getting into a situation like that with a guy where they're just hooking up, and then they start to feel things for him and he's not feeling it for them, and it ends up hurting really, really badly. So let's talk about some of the ways that men and women use each other. And this is a list that I came up with, and what I ended up finding was that I created this list and I looked at it and I realized that all of them are mutual, right? So I know men and women that have experienced all of these, except for maybe one of them. And we'll get to that though. So the first one is free food, free drinks. When I first think about this, I think about women kind of in bars, right? Like asking for free drinks from men, which I have been a victim to. and when I was young, like 10 years, 15 years ago, when I was going to bars and clubs and stuff in my early 20s, early mid 20s, I had run-ins with this where women would come up and, just get free drinks and run off, which is kind of a funny thing to think about. And then men do this as well, right? They do it less they usually do it less in the initial stages. Women tend to do it more in the initial stages, and men tend to do it more in the later stages. Or in the relationship stages where, a guy will because, the fastest way to a man's heart is obviously through his stomach. And so a lot of, if a man thinks that he can get free food from a woman and, he has no intention with her, that can be a situation that happens as well. I've seen it. I know people that have experienced that. So the second way that men and women use each other is through getting validation or making themselves feel better, right? Feel better about themselves, ego boost. And, when I wrote this one, I was thinking about men getting kind of an ego boost from women, right? Because men and their egos a lot of times are, and it's actually both, especially in American culture these days. there's a lot of ego going on right now where men and women are, they want to feel good. They want that validation that they get from the opposite sex. And for women, this is like the Instagram thing, dancing in front of men, different types of situations like that. Sometimes for men, a lot of times it's like getting into a relationship or having a woman, that, there's a woman in our community not too long ago, or maybe this was on the last live stream. Anyway, there was a woman recently who mentioned that, it was in the community. There was a woman recently who mentioned that men, they've talked to some men, and those men were like, oh yeah, I want women to chase me. I want you to chase me. I really like it when women chase me. And the question was about, this guy wants me to chase him. Should I chase him? Right. And my answer to that was, I don't know. Do you want, if a man wants a harem of women who all chase after him, do you want to be one of the harem, or do you want to stand out? Do you want a committed relationship? Right. Because investment is what creates a committed relationship and makes you feel like you want a committed relationship with someone. So the more that he invests in you, the more that more likely he will want a committed relationship with you. And it's the same with you and him. And so if you're investing and he's not, then you're probably going to be the one that wants the committed relationship and he won't. And so it's not always about what people like, right? Because men will go for things that they like, right? Men will go for sex sometimes because they like it, not because it leads to something meaningful down the road. One of the challenges that we have a lot in our society is short-term thinking, short-term ego boost thinking type stuff. And so, exchanges. Yeah. So, exactly. Sorry, I'm just reading some of these chats here. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Some relations aren't anything but exchanges. It's true. Yeah. I mean, if you're, I don't know why a lot of women, I've still been kind of searching for this answer for why women are constantly trying to change men. We get women in our community all the time that are trying to change men. And is that Harambe? Is that how you pronounce it? That's hysterical. That's the gorilla. And so it's one of those things where, it can be a challenge. Harambe, that's too bad. We're kicking you out, buddy. Sorry. If you come in here and say inappropriate things, we're kicking you out. We don't tolerate this anymore. Yeah, well, sometimes, and I think it's human nature, right? Because we end up with these people in relationships, and we wish, I think a lot of times what happens is we wish that things were a little bit different. Like we wish they were a different way. And I think that's a problem, right? I think wanting to change somebody is a problem. I went through this with my father actually for a while, where I was trying to get him to eat a better diet because I wanted him to live longer. And trying to force him to eat a different diet just made our relationship fall apart. It didn't make him eat better or want to eat better. And I think that's pretty common with everybody when they're trying to change somebody, is it doesn't really work. Changing people doesn't work. Accepting them for who they are and then deciding whether who they are is acceptable to you or not is what works. Setting up boundaries and saying, this is who I am, and this is what I need in order to feel valued and cared for and cherished in our relationship. I think that is a much more powerful way to do things. Yeah. Okay. So Lynn says it works both ways. It does work both ways. All right, so we're moving on here. Number 3. Um, so the third way that people use each other is to make their lives seem better or normal to their friends in real life or on social media, sometimes to their family. So people will get into relationships just because, you know, they want to feel like they're valuable. They want to feel like they're worth being in a relationship with. And so a lot of times people, both men and women, will get into relationships and just hang out in relationships that they don't particularly care about, waiting for somebody better to come along because they want to feel like they're normal or okay, or they want their friends and family and followers on social media to think that they're cool or whatever. Happens on both sides. So men and women do this. Another one is using people to run personal errands when they have no interest in the person. So I've seen a lot of women do this before, where I've heard guys complain about it, where women will just, use them to send them on errands and stuff with or without her. And have absolutely no interest in the guy. I think some guys do this as well, right? So sometimes women will feel like they're not valuable enough or they're not worthy enough of a guy. And so they will do things for him in hopes that by doing all those things, he will end up seeing your value and how valuable you are to him. But it usually does exactly the opposite. So if you are trying to show a man how valuable you are to him, that doesn't work. That never works. I know women that also try to convince men that they're valuable enough. That's another no-win strategy. So don't do that. Don't do that. Don't run personal errands for men. Just to try to impress him or make him feel like you're valuable or whatever. That doesn't work. So another one is paying for things. And we talked about this at the beginning with free drinks and free food, but it's a little bit different because this is definitively a money strategy, which, and this works both ways as well. I know men and women that have been in situations where the person they were seeing was buying tons of things for them, gifts, taking them out to movies, buying tickets for concerts and all kinds of other things. And the person had no interest in really being with that person at all. And they knew that person had interest in them. And they just let it continue to happen because it felt good, right? And so this happens on both sides all the time. So don't get into a situation where you're constantly a lot of these things, the reasons that they happen is because a woman doesn't feel like she's enough for a man. And so what she ends up doing is all these different things, paying for things, running errands for a guy, right? Giving him stuff, free food to try to make her seem more valuable to him. And it just none of that stuff works. Another situation is paying bills. So I've seen this. It's a big thing in the men's industry because of the whole gold digger thing, right? So guys are scared out of their minds of getting into situations where they have a gold digger who is just, using him for his money. But it happens in our community as well. There's women in our community right now who have been in situations where they were paying a man's bills for him. And not even living with him and paying his rent for him. And, I don't know. It's a tough one. I don't think you should ever be doing that for a man. Just period. End of story. I don't think you should ever pay a man's bills. Ever. He's a man. He needs to figure it out. Right? If he needs to go and get a loan, if he needs to go and get another job, if he needs to figure some things out, let him figure things out. I don't think you should ever be paying his bills for him. that's that. And so let's move to the next one. And this is the one that I think might just be something that women use men for, which is the fixer, getting him to fix things for her. That's something that, men are fixers. We're problem solvers. We like to do stuff like that. And sometimes, but the next one is primarily a thing that happens to women, which is the one that we were talking about at the very, very beginning of this, which is sexual desires or sexual needs, getting those sexual needs met. And so, the challenge with the sexual desires and sexual needs one is like what we talked about earlier, where you have that oxytocin that comes in, and next thing you know, you're hooked on him and he's still not hooked on you. And that's a problem. And so that does but it happens both ways. I know plenty of men that have been in situations where, and it happens less often with men, because it's easier for women to get sex anytime they want it. Whereas for men, it's much, much more difficult. I think you'd be surprised I think a lot of women would be surprised at how easy they could get sex if they just asked one of their guy friends if they wanted to have sex. I think you'd be very, very, very surprised. But for men, it tends to be a lot more difficult. And so what ends up happening is you see all these guys on these online dating apps and online dating websites where they are pushing for sex, right? Because if a guy, and it's one of those things, the original reason why this question actually came up was because a woman in our community was asking about women who shame men for men's natural desires. And, what happens is, which is something that's happened a lot, especially lately. I don't know if you've seen the Gillette commercial, or there's been a bunch of other things out there, in the not too distant past where there's been some feminists that have really attacked men for and shamed men for approaching women or asking women out or coming on to women or moving things forward. But you have to realize as a man that if you go out on dates and you meet somebody that you really like and you don't push things forward, the woman will probably lose interest. I actually had a friend of mine recently came to me and she's like, hey, there's this guy who I've been going on these dates with, and he hasn't made any moves. He hasn't tried to kiss me. He hasn't done any of that kind of stuff. And we've been on, I don't remember how many dates they went on. And, do you think he still likes me? And I was like, yes, he still likes you, but he's probably afraid to make a real move on you. And which goes to something I was talking about in the last live stream, which was the invitation. The invitation, if you want a man to invest in you, if you want a man to pursue you, if you want a man to sexually move towards a romantic sexual relationship with you, it can be a really powerful thing, especially in this day and age, to do the to do an invitation, to show him interest and invite him to make a move. And I talk a lot about that in some of my other stuff here. So what are we saying here in the comment section? Consider stress factors, investment, chase a man at your own peril. I agree with that. Chase a man at your own peril. It's funny because there's somebody that mentioned in our community not too long ago. She's like, oh, well, there's this guy dating coach on YouTube. And what he said was, you should make a woman chase you. And so I was wondering, should I be chasing men? And it's like, no. Why? Because why would a men's dating coach and a women's dating coach both recommend to the opposite sex that you have the other person chase you? Why would a men's dating coach tell men that you need to have women chase you? And why would a women's dating coach also tell women that you need to have men chase you and invest in you? Why would you do this? The answer is that because it works, right? So it works if you're a man and you want a real relationship. It works to have the woman invest in you, right? And if you're a woman and you want a real relationship with a man, it works to have the man invest in you, because that's what makes a person feel like they want commitment. That's it. It works. It works, guys. Problem solved. All right, that's it. I guess, we don't need any more advice because we have that right. No, I'm just kidding. There's a lot of different things. Actually, if you want some really great advice, if you have a really tough situation that you're working through and you want some advice in an anonymous setting where you don't have to give your name, we're doing a free 30-day trial to our Inner Circle program where you can have one of our coaches help you in your personal situation and answer your questions about whatever situation you have. There's a link in the description of this video. If you want that, click on the link and you can get a free 30-day trial to the Goddess Club Inner Circle program that we have and get your questions answered about whatever your situation is. And nobody will know who you are. There's also a bunch of cool things that you get in there as well. Like I have this feminine texting secrets that men crave guide that you get in there. So if you want a man to invest in you, you want him to pursue you, I recommend getting that. You can get it for free, and you'll learn all about how to do that over text messages. And you can also use those over with normal face-to-face talk if we still do that in our day and age. All right. So does anybody have any other questions about anything? Rebecca with the online sites, just guard your heart. So online dating sites, are they a waste of time? I don't think that they're a waste of time. I think that they can be a waste of time. I think it depends on the situation that you're in. I think it depends on the city and state that you're in. A lot of people are like, oh, it doesn't matter where you live. It does. Like, let's just be honest here. It does matter where you live. And the reason why some people will say it doesn't matter where you live is because what really matters is what's going on inside, right? And what really matters is what's going on in your heart and in your mind. So if you meet a lot of guys and they just want sex, it could be him, or it could be you, or it could be both of you, right? It's not necessarily just him. It's not necessarily just you. And it's not necessarily both of you. I don't know. But so if you want to connect with a man and you want him to feel like you're somebody that he wants to be with in a committed relationship, and he's in a place where he's looking for that, which I think most guys are looking for that. There's a lot of jaded guys these days, but there are a lot of guys who are looking to get into committed real relationships. And if you met one of those guys and you connect with him in the right way, he'll look at you as somebody that he wants a real committed relationship with. And that all has to do with the heart, right? Connecting with his heart, connecting with your heart, connecting your hearts together. Maybe that sounds weird. Does that sound weird? I don't know. Anyway, another thing is your perspective, right? If you have past hurts, if you have lots of pain from your past, and you come to a situation with a guy where you think in your mind men just want sex, men don't want a relationship, men are going to use me, men are going to hurt me. If these are the belief systems that you have, what's going to happen is you're going to find evidence to make this true. Right? You're going to find things, even if he's the best guy in the world, you're going to find red flags. You're going to create red flags. You're going to look for things that aren't even there. You're going to make things that aren't red flags into red flags. And you're not going to end up you're going to think there are no good men out there. Right? And so this is what happens. Absolutely, Liz. Law of attraction. That's right. It's not only law of attraction though. So Helena and I have talked quite a bit about this, and she's kind of more into the woo-woo kind of law of attraction stuff. I'm more into kind of the practical things, but it's really like practical, like use this, it works. This is how you use it. This is how it works type of thing. But it's amazing how much those things mix, right? So she kind of gets into this thing of like, feeling it and seeing it, and it, it comes to you, you go to it. And I kind of come from this thing of like reprogramming your mind so that you see the things that you want to see. You see things that serve you, right? So whenever something's going on in my life, and whenever I like to do little checks, right, where I question what's going on in my life, and I look at it, I'll look at a belief system that I have. Let's do one with men, for instance, since we're doing a men's and dating stuff right now. Let's say you have a belief in your mind about men. Let's do the there are no good men out there. And you catch yourself saying that, right? And you want to catch yourself saying things because those are usually associated to belief systems that you have that you don't even know that you have. And so when you catch yourself, it's like your subconscious mind is throwing something out there. And if you can catch it, or if you can have somebody else catch it and they're like, hey, did you realize that you said this, right? You said there are no good men out there. You said men are pigs, or you said, men are just trying to use women or whatever. And just look at that belief and say to yourself, does this serve me? Right? If you ask yourself, there's this person out there named Byron Katie, and she does this thing where she asks if something is true or not. I don't like that because it's very possible that you might take evidence that isn't good evidence for that thing being true and making it true. I'd rather say, does this serve me, right? Does it serve me to look at men and think that they're going to take advantage of me? Does it serve me to look at men and think that they're pigs, or think that there are no good men out there? Does this serve me, right? And then, oh, Helena's here. Hey, Helena. We were just talking about you. And so does it serve you? And if it doesn't serve you, then what you need to do, in my opinion, and Helena might have a different, I think she's got a different kind of system for doing this. But my opinion, what you need to do is you need to break that and create a new kind of belief system around that exact same thing, right? And maybe it's a small one. Like let's take the belief system of there are no good men out there, right? The first thing that you might want to do is say, there are some good men out there. There are a few good men out there. There are good men out there, right? And then what you do is you look for evidence of it, right? If you can look for evidence and you can find evidence that there are good men out there, that'll break that belief. And then you have a chance to work in a new belief around that, right? And so maybe you'll want to keep the idea that there are some good men out there. And what somebody was saying something a little bit. So Liz was talking about heal to bring forth a new self and presence and future. I'm totally on board with that. Like healing is one of the most powerful. Oh, hello from Korea. Healing is one of the most powerful things that you can possibly do in order to reshape the world that you live in. And I actually spent a long time doing this with myself because it's so important. I think that the only way that you can really do this effectively, like really, really effectively, is to hire a mentor or get a mentor or hire a coach, somebody that's outside, right? It's hard to do with friends or relationships. I remember I was in the military. It was 2005. And I was at the end of my military career. and I was dating this woman. Her name was Jackie. And it was like the beginning of me kind of getting into a lot of like personal growth stuff. And I remember I was like looking at things and I was trying to find my limiting beliefs. I was trying to figure out what my limiting beliefs were. And there was this book that I got. It was called Mind Lines. And what the book said was to go and talk to people and ask people what beliefs you have that are limiting you in your life. And so I got my girlfriend at the time, Jackie, and I sat her down in this coffee shop, and we're sitting there, and I was like, yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what belief systems I have that are really bad. And she was trying to be a great girlfriend. And she was like, no, all your belief systems are great. No. Everything you think is wonderful. And, your mind is amazing. And, just, throwing out compliments, stroking my ego, doing all that kind of stuff. And, I caught something in our conversation that she said that was like a limiting belief system that she had. And I was like, oh, here's one of yours. Now, I don't even remember what it was. I have no idea what it was, but I said it and she got so angry. And she's like, oh yeah, well, you want to know what yours are? And she just started like listing off all of these, like, everything that it wasn't even just beliefs. It was like everything she doesn't like about me. Like she was listing off. And I was like, oh, perfect. I know now if I want the truth from you, I just have to make you angry. Right. Yeah, it was pretty funny. But it gave me a chance then to like look at myself. And what I found was that I actually ended up going through some programs. I did some one-on-one coaching, and I went through some programs, and for me, those were gave me the biggest breakthroughs. You can try to kind of reframe the world around you by yourself, but it just doesn't work very well because you're in it, right? And so when you're in it, it's like, when you look at men, you're like, no, really, men, there are no good men out there. No, really, men are trying to use women. No, really, and you say these different things that aren't serving you, and you don't even realize that that it's not the truth because you're so in it that it's hard to reflect on it and see it. Whereas if you have a good mentor or you have a good coach, that coach can sit there and be like, did you hear that you just said there are no good men out there? Did you hear that you just said that all men are trying to use you? Let's say that you're in a relationship with a guy. Let's say you're in a relationship with a guy named Jeff. And he's like, look, how do you think Jeff feels about you feeling like all men are trying to take advantage of you, which means that your guy Jeff, it means that you believe that he's trying to take advantage of you too. How do you think he would feel about you thinking that about him? It's one of those things where if you have a coach, it's just better. Which is why I'm getting to pitching the the Inner Circle program again. If you want a 30-day free trial and you want to have your questions answered, if you want a coach to help you with your situation, you should join our Inner Circle trial. There's a link to it in the description under this video. I think that's it for today. I don't see any other questions about anything. Specifically, if she chases the man, she's in her masculine energy. Yep. Should I not pick up the cleaners either? Okay, well, thanks everyone for being here with us today. And, again, thank you so much. We're looking to build a world of partnership. We're looking to create a place, a society where men and women aren't trying to fight and attack each other. We're trying to heal the war of the sexes here. And, part of that is, part of that's a logical thing. Part of it's looking at things in a different way. But really, most of this work, if you want a real long-term committed relationship, and this isn't a very popular thing to say, but it's really about doing the inner work. It's really about getting into the heart. It's really about healing what's going on with you and creating a place where you can emotionally and mentally be in a space where you can be in a real relationship and you can connect in the right ways and you have the right frame of mind and you're in a space where you can really, relationships are all about dealing with the hard times, right? Because anybody can be in a relationship during the easy times, and the question is, can you be in a relationship during the hard times? Which all relationships go through. There's a myth out there where a lot of people seem to think that a relationship, either it just works and everything's great, or it's not meant to be. And I disagree with that. Most of the people that I've seen who had that mindset usually run into a situation where things build and build and build and build until it explodes. And then all of a sudden they're in like crisis mode because they think they're getting a divorce because they haven't worked through some of the problems and challenges and issues that are in the relationship. And it just continues to put weight and pressure and pain on the relationship until it just explodes. That's right, Liz. Explodes. Bomb exploding. That's right. So thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you for being a part of our channel. I appreciate you. And you guys are the best part of everything that we're doing. So thank you so much. And I look forward to speaking with you again soon. Cheers.